a lot of what people say is are differentiate research shows that are differentiators for success and for successful movements are empathy and vulnerability. Um, how do you keep that going once you have success, right? Like that humble and empathetic,
Mhm.
because when power switches, power can switch, right? So
Yeah.
how do you hold on to that and hold on to the momentum?
I would say two things about that. I think first, as power switches, right? I think practicing reflexivity and positionality becomes even more important. I mean, it has to be a daily, hourly practice, right? And so there, that awareness has to happen. But I think the other thing that has to happen is that solidarity has to be held intact. So one of the things that you'll see, one of the things that does threaten progress in some of these movements is when certain parts of the movement start to ascend to having power, and then the folks assume that just because they have power, they're no longer invested in the cause, and that causes a fracture between or within the movement. So you have natural allies who, just because they're in a position of power, sometimes aren't seen as natural allies. And so I do think that can be a threat, right? And you see that with, women who've become, very successful in, let's say, television, right? You've got that phenomenon of incredibly successful women writers, women in media, that there's this sense of, well, now you're disconnected from me. And it's like, no, these are still powerful allies, and we have to keep that solidarity intact.
I love that idea of solidarity. As we talked about racial justice and so many things that have been going on, one thing that I, as member of a community of color, have been mourning and trying to figure out is the idea of, it's kind of human nature. When you rise up, you step on whoever's coming in behind you. You've seen that with immigration, with waves of immigrants, and certainly in pretty prevalent in terms of racial divides, ethnic divides. What do you think about feminist movements that could be different, and be a better, more continuous, we're still lifting up others as we rise.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to be that intentionality has to be there, right? So that we have to remember that we need to lift as we climb.
Mhm.
Um, but we also need to create networks of trust, so that those who we are trying to lift are also, we're not dragging them, to sort of beat this metaphor, it's like, well, we can lift if people are willing to come with, but not if there's a distrust. So I think that we have to continue to nurture that trust, and that's a process that has to be continuously nurtured, right? That solidarity isn't something that happens overnight, nor is it something that we can count on continuing untended. So we have to keep being intentional. We have to tend that. We have to cultivate that trust so that we can lift as we climb.